Kelly, would you do that, please?
You should be good.
Okay, good then. So good morning, everybody, and good afternoon and good evening. Thank you very much for joining today to this IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group session. Today we have a workshop on unconscious bias in astronomy, awareness, impact, and action. And the workshop is being delivered by Naomi Asber Frimpong. She's Deputy Director of the IAU Office of Astronomy Outreach. And to give you a brief intro, she's an astrophysicist, science communicator, and leading several outreach activities in African astronomy. She earned her PhD from the University of Manchester in 2020, after which she worked as a computer scientist from the eMerlin development team until 2023. Naomi then joined the IAU Office for Astronomy Outreach from Ghana Space Science and Technology Institute, where she had led communication and outreach efforts until 2025, early 2025. Her work has made important contributions to the growth of astronomy and development of scientific communities across Africa. As far as the former vice president of the African Astronomical Society, she played a crucial role in the advancement of astronomy across the country. And now, in her role as deputy director of the IAU Office for Astronomy Outreach, she continues to foster global collaboration and drive progress in the field. So I welcome Naomi, and just to briefly introduce myself, I'm Mamta Pomia, the chair of IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group. So we are very happy to have you, Naomi, today with us, and I hand over to her to go ahead with the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamta. Thank you everyone for joining us and for giving me the opportunity to share this workshop. I'll start by sharing my screen. And please, do you see my screen?
Yes, we can, yes.
Great. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Naomi Asabre Frimpong. I'm the Deputy Director for the IAU Office for Astronomy Outreach, and today's workshop is unconscious bias. Its awareness, its impact, and actions to take to mitigate unconscious bias. Now, this session has a couple of parts. We'll be doing some introduction and a little icebreaker to get us, evolved, and then we'll go out, have a talk, and then break out into discussion groups where we'll have some scenarios to do. We will do some role play and answer some discussion questions, just so we can know how well we understand unconscious bias, and whether we will be able to identify it. We'll come back and share what we have discussed. We'll go towards mitigation of unconscious bias, and we'll have a Q&A session afterwards. Now, before we even start, I want to say that we are not here to judge anyone. We're not here to even judge ourselves. We are here to understand unconscious bias and how to recognize it, and to know and how unconscious biases influence our decisions and our actions. So please don't be too hard on yourselves or on anyone that you think has been biased against somebody or yourself. We are just here to make sure we are all on the same page and we can recognize unconscious bias in ourselves and in others or in situations. So we are now on our icebreaker. We're going to do a little Q&A session. So I'll ask everyone to, on their phone or on their laptops, to join me at menti.com with this code 54682431. Can I see by hands those who are able to join? Then I can move there, and then we can have a slight discussion. So I'll stop sharing, and I'll go there now.
Naomi, can you put the number in the chat?
Yeah. Yes, 1 minute, please. Can you see my screen? Wait, let me see.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay. And now putting it in the chat. So there's the link and there's the code. While I go here. Has everyone been able to join? Mentimeter.
Yeah, I'm connected. Is it supposed to start at number 9?
You're already on number 9?
Yeah.
You
need to navigate to number 9.
Please hold on. Don't
How do
go
I
too
get
fast.
back to the first one? This is actually the icebreaker.
I will move you there. Don't worry. I'll move you there very soon. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Great. Okay. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to go to. Okay. Can you all see my screen? And you should all be on number 1.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the first question is, have you ever personally experienced or witnessed unconscious bias? So I think you have options to select more than one answer. So please answer as many times as you can, and then it will tell you when you are out of options to answer. Oh. Is everyone done?
No. Sorry. Should we just write yes or no, or
Yes, just click on yes. I think the options are there, so just click on yes.
I can enter
I
a
have
word.
experienced it personally,
I don't
and I
see
can click on that one.
options. I don't
Pardon?
see any options. I
You
don't
don't
see any options. I see enter a word. I can answer yes or no or whatever. I can enter whatever word I want.
Try refreshing your browser.
Yes. Oh yeah,
Okay,
now
try
it came. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Great. So we have a good number of people who have experienced it personally and also witnessed it in other people. That's really good. So now we can see that we are not alone. It's possible we have witnessed it, or somebody closer has witnessed it, or somebody closer has been a victim of unconscious bias. Now we go to the next question, and it should pop up on your screen. Is what did you feel at that time? Can you describe what word came into your mind, or how you felt in a word? What word describes a time when you personally experienced it or somebody experienced it? And did you feel like you were invisible? Did you feel it was unfair? Were you happy? Were you angry? So we can know the emotion. I think you have options to share about 3 words that describes that period of time for you. So let me know whether you are on the number 2, and let me know. Oh, the first one that jumped at me was angry. It's like, yeah, let me get more response for you. You can put in as many as 3 numbers. Oh yeah, frustrated is one. Shocked. Yeah, that can be an experience. Annoyed, eyes. Undermined, yes. Frustrated. I can see unfair is a very, very prominent feeling that describes that kind of experience. That it is unfair, that you feel you have merit or something is being done that should be done according to abilities and is being determined by some other influences. I'm happy I'm getting these. Frozen. That's nice. That's a unique way of looking at it. Frozen, like you are being kept in a box. You're being told like you have to stay here and you can't go anymore. Being put in a box. Nice. So discriminated against, yes, unconscious bias can bring all of these feelings out. There's never a time I've seen somebody said, oh, I was biased again and I felt happy that, you know, this was supposed to go to me, but I felt because of some other influences, it wasn't given to me, or I wasn't seen in the right way, and I'm happy about it. No, it always brings a negative feeling. So I'm happy we brought that out. Now let's go to the next slide. It says, have you yourself been biased? You think you've ever been biased yourself? People are being honest. That's nice. Some are not sure. That's good. Amazing. Thank you for your responses. So as I said, you know, and please know that everything we are doing is really totally anonymous. So no one knows what you put in. I don't see it, and nobody here sees it. It's anonymous, and I will not see it even later. So don't worry. You can be as honest as you can be. Great. Has everybody put in their answers? We need to wait a couple more times. A couple more time. Okay, all right, so we'll move on to the next question. How did you realize you were biased or being biased again? You were biased or are being biased? Did you self-reflect and realize, oh, I think at this point, I think I did this the wrong way. I should have considered some other parameters, or somebody gave you feedback later that I think you should have taken a look at this in a different way, or were you called out at the moment that it happened, like, you shouldn't have done that? No. Are we getting some activity in the audience, like the participants? Can I see some more answers from the participants? Because your comments are going to make it much nicer. So self-reflection.
Multiple options, Naomi.
Pardon?
This should have come with multiple options.
It doesn't come with multiple options?
No, it's like you choose
Sorry
one
about
only.
that. You can only pick one. Oh, that's my bad. Sorry about that. But at least self-reflection is being picked, which shows that people are aware of when they are being biased. That's great. Thank you for your input. Now we're going to kind of go towards assumptions. There's a name, Jamal. What word or image comes to your mind when you hear the name Jamal? Male, Black, African, white, scientist. What comes to mind? Just a word. And I think you can put in 3 words. So let's put in as many words as we think describes that name that comes to mind. Foreign. Nice. Man. Muslim boy name. Can we have more words? Black man. Black person. Great. Should we go on to the next one? Do I have all inputs from participants? Okay, so we'll go on to the next name. The next name on your screen should be Chen. In the same way, for this name, what first word or image comes into your mind, and you can put it up. Nice. Great. Do we have any more? good in science. Yes. Tech company. Great. Thank you for your inputs. We'll go on to the next name. It's Emily. Next name is Emily. Latin name. Blonde. White. Woman, female, artist. White. Any more? Don't forget, you can put in more than one name. There are options to, I think, give 3. European. Great. Any more coming in? Nice. You see why it's coming in more European. Great. Now let me show you. Let's go to the next question. Who of the 3 do you assume is an astronomer or scientist? There's no right answer. I think you can pick 2 people. Who of the 3 do you assume is an astronomer or a scientist of the 3 names? Jamal, Chen, Emily. Any more coming in? Nice. Great. Can we move on to the next? Now let me show you Jamal, Chen, and Emily. Emily is a British-American actress. She's won a Golden Globe Award, and I'm sure you all know her. It's Emily Blunt, famous actress. And Professor Chen is actually a solar physicist at the University of Nanjing University in China. So most of you were right, your assumptions were right. Your brain did a quick mathematics in your head and you came up with Chen is Chinese and he must be good at science. And Jamal is actually a white male Londoner who is actually a lawyer, corporate lawyer. So you can see how far different our assumptions can be just from a name. So I'll now ask the question, where do you think your first assumptions or impressions came from? Do you think it was from a movie you watched? Do you think it was from, you know a friend called Emily who is an astronomer, so you assumed all Emily's are astronomers? Where do you think these first impressions or assumptions came from? And you assume Jamal is a black African, African man or Arabic man who is, yes, stereotype. Movies, personal context, yes. Perceptions. Assumptions, nice. People I know, news, preconceived notions. I'm happy that we have done this exercise and you have been able to see that we all make assumptions and some of our assumptions may be correct, but some may not be accurate. And they come from many things contribute to having these assumptions. So we'll stop this Mentimeter for now, but please keep it on your phone still. We'll come back to it later. I'll stop sharing and go back to the slides that we have. So while you're waiting for me, I hope you're thinking about where all this came from, where all your assumptions and first impressions came from. And I'm taking on a kind of a roller coaster today, but please bear with me. We have a lot to cover. Can you see my screen now? Great. So from our little exercise, I'm sure you realize that our brain takes a lot of shortcuts. Our brain needs to assess a lot of things, and biases are actually our mental shortcuts that our brain takes. And these shortcuts are shaped by the environment we grew up in, the culture we grew up in, and our experiences. As some of you mentioned that you knew people, and so you assumed that person is the be-all and end-all of all Emilys or all Jamals. And the goal of this workshop is not to guilt you, but to bring awareness and intention in unconscious bias, so we can know that we all have unconscious biases, but how do we deal with it? And so during this talk, we have a couple of objectives. We want to identify biases. We want to explore the impact of unconscious bias on individuals and opportunities within the astronomy community. We want to practice some strategies to know what challenges are being faced and to reduce the influence of biases in decision-making, and also to learn ways to mitigate unconscious bias. And so the first thing I want to say is that going back, I said before that our brain often takes shortcuts. Okay, it actually relies on these shortcuts because we need to act, we need to assess, we need to decide. And the shortcuts are a way to allow the brain to make quick decisions because we have so much information around us. The world is complex. And so our brain draws on these biases to make decisions. And sometimes these biases have an impact on the decisions we make, and we may not even realize it. Unconscious bias refers to the automatic and unintentional judgment. The way there is unintentional, you may not even know that you're going through it, that we make about people based on our background, our culture, and our personal experiences. And this unconscious bias may lead to unfair treatment and missed opportunities in the astronomy community. And the origins of bias are based on these three things. We have cognitive shortcuts that our brain takes. As I said before, it's like mental strategies your brain takes to make sure that you are being efficient in decision making. You don't need to process 5 minutes before you make a decision. You want to do something as quickly as possible to save yourself, to make sure that you are making the right decision and you are protecting yourself. And so it's a kind of a rule of thumb thing that your brain does to make sure that you are efficient in your decision making. And then we have social conditioning, where you have gone through some training in your environment, in your culture. Society has trained you to know things, to assume things. And it refers to like the inherent norms from your environment, ideologies that condition you and give you some experiences that shape your worldview. And also we have evolutionary instincts, where your body is like fight or flight mode. How do we survive? So you see a dog coming towards you, your first instinct is to run because it's an instinct to protect yourself. So this evolutionary instincts are also a cause of unconscious bias. And we'll do a short test. I want to know how many you get right, because there are 13 of them. We're going to read out the colors, not the words. This will show us how socially conditioned we are. So 1 minute for each person. I'm going to count and say the colors, not the words. So we can unmute and tell ourselves, how many did you get right? And how many did you get wrong? Did you get more than 5 wrong? Or you can put in the chat and we can read out how many you got right and how many you got wrong. Remember, you are supposed to Read out loud the colors and not.
Red, blue, green, yellow, orange, purple, purple, black, brown, pink, orange, gray, red. I got all right. 3
No, you didn't
times.
get all right. I'm saying read out the colors, not the words. So it's blue,
Ah.
red, green, purple, I don't know what this one was. Pink, green, pink, black, orange, blue, orange, gray. You see how your brain tricked you into thinking that you got it all right. But actually, it was the other way around. So that's what social conditioning is. We have been trained so much to know things by how we read them. Like, we know this is red. And if I say read out the color, we assume red should be red. Like, this is red. But actually, the color is blue. And that is social conditioning. That's how powerful these origins of unconscious bias is. It's not something that you can innately say, oh, I'm getting rid of all my social conditioning. It's something that has to be systematically and consciously done. And so we come to the types of biases in academia and research, and there are multiple of them. There is gender bias that we all know, where people are, gender is favored above another. For example, during hiring or promotions or research opportunities, one gender is favored over the other for various reasons and various assumptions that people make. We also have affinity, where people prefer other people who share their similar background, or they are coming from the same university or same institution or interest. For example, a senior astronomer will have applicants applying for a position as a research assistant, but will pick someone from his alma mater or from his country, or somebody who speaks English. That's an example of affinity bias. And then we have confirmation bias, where we tend to seek information to support pre-existing beliefs. And so a 6 can be a 9, but you insist it's a 6 because of where you're standing and where you believe in. So everything, you start looking for facts to prove that you are standing in front of a 6 when it's actually a 9. And then we have performance bias, where we believe a certain group is naturally capable of doing something, but a certain group needs to do more, or they had to prove that they can do it. And then we have attribution bias, where we think somebody is naturally gifted, but somebody has to work hard, or somebody does the same thing, but we think, oh, the woman worked hard, but the man is a genius. Okay, that is trying to give attributions to people. And then we have maternal bias. Actually, sometimes women are biased against because they assume they have children and they don't care about their career, or do not have enough time for their career. And these are not the be-all and end-all of biases. There are multiple biases that we can talk of. There's name bias, there's educational gap bias, there's experience gap bias, there's appearance and even accent. We talk about halo effect and anchoring bias. There are multiple biases that some of them are even interrelated. Sometimes performance bias can look like attribution bias, and it's all together doing the same thing, bringing somebody, not let somebody attain what they are rightfully due because of their merit, but instead of influences from either social conditioning or something else. And so we are going to now explore how the impact of biases in our student community. We know that it has heavily impacted careers of people in subtle but very significant ways. Candidates are, decisions are being hampered because of bias through unfair assessments and decisions about candidates. We have diversity and inclusion activities of institutions being hindered because of unconscious bias. The policy is there, but it's not being acted upon because of the people who are in the institutions having their own unconscious biases, and potentially leading to low quality hires and recruitment in the astronomy community. People getting grants who are not due the grants, who are competing on the same level with other people, but because of some bias, they are given a chance when the one with merit is not getting the right opportunity. And this impact is actually seen in having a limited applicants pool. People, when you are shortlisting, you see that the shortlist you've made is all monotonous. There's no diversity in the shortlist that you have to decide on. There's less diversity in the workforce. There's fewer leadership roles. And even if there are roles for minority or diversified groups, they have less authority. Their authority are being questioned now and again because people feel they don't deserve to be in authority. There's low morale because of such lookovers and pull downs. And then there's lack of access to networks. Those who are being marginalized actually have less access to the networks that other people have access to. And it impacts heavily especially on women and underrepresented groups, where there's gender bias in research recognition. Sometimes a woman has done so much work, but then when it comes to the glory of maybe doing an interview, they call their male counterparts, and they are rather being asked the questions. They're not given a chance to even talk, and they are even being interviewed or vice versa. There's a lack of role models for these underrepresented groups because they don't see other people like them in the institutions. And then there's implicit expectations and extra service works, like they're expected to be the go-to person for all diverse groups, like or women are expected to be more in tune with outreach or do more outreach because they are women, or they have to take up mentorship roles at the detriment of their research careers. There's also harassment and hostile working environments for women and underrepresented groups, and also there's a lack of work-life balance for these groups, which is very, very detrimental to their career development. And when it comes to the institution, we see that there is reduced innovation, because the less diverse your workers pool is, the less innovation happens in your institution. Where the less diverse thinking that goes on. There's also reduced the lower financial performance, and also you can clearly see disparity in funding. People are being let go after 2 years contract, where other people are staying on for 5-year contracts or getting grants with lower pay, or all these issues happen in the workforce and also in the institution. Now we go on to practicing. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to break out into breakout rooms into groups of 4, and we have these scenarios. One is sharing the spotlight. The other is working talk together on a mountain. The other is balancing commitment, and the fourth one is the ground review meeting. Now, these are all real life or experience and challenges that have been put together in a Google Doc, and you are going to join any of these groups. You'll be put in any of these groups, and you have a scenario that you can pick someone to act out. You can discuss the questions and put down your answers. This is how. So this is how the breakout room. Sorry. So this is the breakout room. I'm going to put the link in the chat and show you also how the
Can I just chime in for one quick second?
Yes, please, Kelly.
So breakout rooms were not enabled on this Zoom call, so we actually can't do breakout rooms. But
Okay.
there's a small group of us, so we can actually just do this discussion in this room.
Okay.
There's only, well, there's 8 of us, including one AI.
Okay, all right. So I will just share the Google Doc, and then we can just talk about the scenarios. Great. So we go to the first scenario, and Kelly, do you want to lead a discussion for me on this one?
Sure. Okay. So, well, I guess the question would be, how do we want to do this? Do you want to go through all of the scenarios or choose 2 or 1 and spend a lot of time on it? The choice is yours.
I think we can pick each and just spend 5 minutes on it and try and answer the questions with inputs from the other participants.
Okay, that sounds great.
So you taking notes? Okay, so I'll leave it. You want me to take notes or you?
Why don't you lead it now, and I'll write down what everybody says.
Okay. All right. So we have our first scenario where Amara is a postdoc who has spent 2 years leading the analysis behind a groundbreaking exoplanet discovery at a major conference. At the major conference, she co-presents with her senior collaborator, Dr. Klein, who supported but did not lead the work. During Q&A and media interviews, most of the attention and technical questions are directed to Dr. Klein. Amara is thanked briefly but not asked to elaborate. Dr. Klein also doesn't correct assumptions about their roles, and afterwards he is invited to join a prestigious panel alone. Amara wonders whether to speak up or remain silent for the sake of future collaborations. So that is the scenario, and we have a couple of discussion questions. And the first question is, what form of bias, implicit or explicit, were at play in how the recognition was distributed? So anyone can open their mic and, tell us what they think. I think you all have access to this link, so you can also put in your, can we have some contribution from?
Yeah, well, I can start if you want. I think it's
yes, please.
bias, right? Because of the gender and the seniority. And which is very common, actually.
Yes, very common.
It could also be both ways. It could be, it's not only that the senior professor with whom she worked wants to take the credit because he has been training the student to do the job. But at the same time, it could be also the bias coming from the community around who want to give him importance because he has certain powers because of his seniority, and also because it's a male-dominated field. So that's the reason why he would be given more importance, and that's why there is a bias there. Besides that, I think that's more professional argument, but sometimes you may also see bias coming from the society. Some journalists, some communication people, or some other organizing members who are non-researchers, let's say, who are not into the research field, they may underestimate the contribution of the young PhD student, the female student, just because she may perhaps not manage to explain the topic very well or in a global way because she's a beginner. And so they won't even care to take into account her comments, or they won't even care to interview her, even if she has done a ground-breaking contribution, which is why she should be appreciated, because at a very young age, she could do something, spot out a new discovery. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamta. Kelly, you want to say something?
Yeah, Mamta, I just have a question. What makes you think that Dr. Klein is a man?
That's just because we go with this stereotype that it's a male-dominated field. That's the reason. If we don't take that into account, then of course it's a female. And in that case, it's a different kind of bias that we are seeing. It's bias based upon same genders, you see, and that is also very common in research. But since we go with this idea that it's already unconscious bias which is coming into picture because of this imbalance, gender imbalance, I give the example of the male professor, but it can very well be a female professor.
I think that if it would be, I've lived in my career with several female professors, and if it would be a female professor with a male postdoc, I believe that the questions would still be addressed to this because of the seniority to the female professor in that case. But of course, maybe in some cultures, it could be more of the gender bias. But in the culture I lived, in this case, if it would be the opposite, it would be the opposite. I would just say it's the seniority bias that counts more in this example, not necessarily the gender bias.
I think you've kind of answered both question 1 and question 2, but the question 3 asks, in what way could Dr. Klein disrupted this bias in real time, kind of like make sure it did not happen? And should Amara have said something at what cost? I think that's a very important question to ask. If you were Dr. Klein, what would you have done differently to make sure?
Yeah, I think it's just an explicit role definition, right, on the project, because I'm sure, it happens a lot those days, right, that, the context and the setup of the project came from the professor, from the senior person, but implementation, right, because it requires mastering AI and machine learning and things that the old people doesn't have a handle on it, right? Because it's not from that generation. I think the protagonism of the young postdocs and the young PhD students are increasing in terms of methodology, but from the professor side, the professor will also need, he or she will also need the recognition to keep going with the research group, with the funding, with all the things, right? So I think it's about clarifying the contributions of the people, right? But I think both need to be recognized, right, for the effort.
Dr. Klein should have sent the question to the postdoc immediately when receiving it. So he should have refrained himself from speaking and said this question will be answered by the person who did the job, which was Amara, and not say anything, let Amara answer. That's how he could have broken the bias in real time.
Or he could just put her always as the first person who is giving the response, and he remains the second person, because as Claudio says, the credit goes to both of them. And as I said initially, that it's thanks to his guidance and thanks to his support that she has done this work. But at the same time, she is a young person who should be appreciated to go ahead, and not, her work shouldn't be suppressed by some senior person. So he should be second, and that's where the leadership capability comes into picture, and you can see who is a good leader or not by putting the younger person who deserves to be appreciated for the contribution before themselves. So both should go, because if the person doesn't support, the student cannot get the job to start, cannot get access to the funding, the position, and the work they are doing. Even if they are very bright, opportunities matter, they count. But at the same time, once this opportunity is given, what kind of and quality of work you could do, and how much is it suppressed or how much is it supported. That depends upon the environment in which you're working, and also depends in the gender imbalance which exists within the project or within the institution, and the stereotypes which are being followed by the people. So it goes both ways. But
So how
because
often,
it was initiated by the student, she should always be in the communication. She is leading the project. She should be in the communication, and she should be the first person with the accompanying professor, whether male or female, who should be always there. But second, to be sure that the communication is done in the right sense based upon his experience or her experience that she puts into the students' work.
thanks, Martha. So how often have we seen this happen, and why does it still persist after all? I'm sure our institutions have done unconscious bias training for most of us at some point in our careers. So why this happens so often, and why does it still happen even now? Is it actively seeking to be not biased? My internet is. Okay, while we are thinking about all these questions, let's go to the next scenario. And I think you all have the links. You can keep putting your ideas in, and we'll keep checking up on these responses later. So when we go to the second tab, which is the second scenario, we have Daniel, who is a postdoc with social anxiety, and he joins a research team at the remote observatory, where the team members are really polite, but they often default to their own familiar social circles and routines. Many key project discussions happen informally over meals and evening gatherings. Like in the UK, they go to the pub after work. And Daniel, because of his struggles, cannot attend or due to his anxiety, and he's feeling like an outsider. And during a critical data run, Daniel quietly poses a solution that is quickly dismissed, but is later suggested by another senior member and is immediately accepted. And a colleague says to him, "You've got to be louder if you want to be noticed around here." And Daniel feels increasingly invisible and worries that speaking up about these patterns might jeopardize his professional relationships and career prospects. The question is, what biases are we seeing here? And the micro exclusions shaped by Daniel's experience. Any comments?
I'm not sure about the what kind of bias. I don't know. I wouldn't know what to say about bias, but yeah, I think this is people being mean to each other. I don't know. If it would be a woman, it would be even worse. I myself have experienced a similar bias, not because of social anxiety, but just for being a woman. If a woman has an idea, maybe it's dismissed. And if a male colleague with the same seniority propose that idea is immediately accepted. So in
One thing that I've really
not
noticed,
sure.
you know, all of the work that I've done in science and in science communication is that we kind of assume that the people who are the loudest, who take up the most space, are the smartest, who are the most capable, and we don't provide space for other people to grow in that way. So I don't know what the bias is called necessarily. It may be like extroversion bias, but kind of seems like there's multiple things at play here.
Mhm.
I think the urge to be with familiar people and familiar things and welcoming someone new who doesn't really fit your idea of someone who can be your friend is what is going on here, where people have their social groups already formed and bringing somebody in, and whether on a professional level or on a more informal level doesn't work as well, especially the person does not actively try to be part of that group.
Maybe it's a bias of how the scientific, the behavior, some behavior bias could be called, because you expect that person to have a certain type of behavior that you're not seeing, so and therefore you can dismiss that idea because that person doesn't present the behavior you have in your framework. You expect, maybe.
And I think that goes to the second point where it asks how the teams, academic teams, unintentionally gatekeep collaborations and trust. Information are not being shared equally among, team members because of this behavioral bias or, in-group, out-group that Kelly has written. Where because somebody's not good, they don't even know there's an opportunity to apply for a grant or to, contribute to some research because they're not part of the group. And it's not intentional, but if everything is being discussed over cigarettes outside the building at lunchtime and someone doesn't, then he doesn't know what happened when you were out smoking with maybe 3 people and you're out discussing some grants and some contributions you're going to do. But then the conversation is not translated back into the office where there are people who are not part of that clique. And so they are there not knowing what is going on, but a whole conversation, a whole research has been done outside 20 minutes ago between people who are having a smoke or having a drink or went out to the pub, yesterday. And so it's not intentional, but if the discussion is happening, you're not part of the conversation that's happening. And you might hear about it when it's like one day to deadline, and then you have to scramble to, write something for work. So this kind of the points asked for when
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Naomi's internet is often not that great. But I think it's something that I noticed in what Naomi was saying. If I can try to have my telepathic connection to her brain. is that this is kind of, I don't know if it translates well into other cultures or other languages, but at least within the American context, it's the water cooler effect, where you have people gathering around a water cooler and talking about ideas and throwing things around and coming up with new ways of doing things that kind of exclude the people who are not present, kind of obviously. And I wonder to what extent COVID kind of democratized this a little bit. Definitely not a lot, but you know, nobody was around the water cooler. The water cooler was gone. And so, you know, how maybe have those, that particular kind of bias or unfair advantage, how has that changed now that we're in this, you know, quote unquote post-COVID era?
Sorry, my internet just dropped off and I had to jump back in. Sorry about that. I think it does that every time you're having something really. So
Can
how
I-
discussion going about this? Mhm. Please, Claudio.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. Sorry.
No, please go on.
Yeah, it's you know this topic, right, of including diversity and improving psychological safety. I mean, we need to tie this to the outcome, right? I mean, that is the things that you have to deliver, right? Even in a research group or a company or organization, right? And that for me, Naomi, is the hard part, because I mean you have a established culture that is, you know, for good or bad, is delivering results, okay? And you have, in this case here, you have a new person that comes and that needs a different expression of that culture, okay? Is not working for him, but the rest of the company or the rest of the group is working, okay? So if you know, you have to phrase, okay, from a, you know, the human being point of view, of course we need to change, we need to include this person, right? This give a sense of belonging and all of that, right? But from the pragmatic point of view of delivering results, right? It's really, I think, a talent that is not seen, I think, in many managers, right? To understand that we need that skill that person brings, right? And open up the space to that person, right? Because at the end, it is about only not, you know, being nice, but it is about also delivering results, right? So that for me has been the big challenge in my job, right?
Well, one way to understand what's going on is also to see the results which are being delivered and by whom. If the results are being delivered by closed members who follow the same culture, that means there is something not fitting very well with the people who are being hired from different cultures and who are not managing to either share and communicate well and kind of contribute their expertise in the best way possible. The main job of a manager is to bring in all the expertise and to make it work. That's where it's his leadership and his expertise or his position is justified. If he is incapable of doing that, or she is incapable of doing that, and he or she is just managing to go ahead because there are certain close members within their team and they're all trained in the same fashion because they have been using certain tools or certain way of working or certain training which they have got, they have the similar background. As a result, they manage to just go on proceeding and progressing in their work and delivering the results. Then why did you need this person? What was his position? That should be explained. Why was he hired or she hired? And why was she kept on this position? that should be explained by the manager. It is not to say that, okay, in the end, oh, the person was inefficient for our project. On what ground did you feel or that this person was important, and why did you hire? And if you hire, it was your responsibility to make sure that he delivered at least whatever he was hired for. And did you manage to make the group free, communicating enough so that the person could do his best in the environment that was provided to him? So that's a challenge. I mean, for example, I can go on talking, but I would rather listen from others. I mean, one of the point is about this Women in Astronomy working group. I was always very surprised what was going on. This group has been existing, it was always there, and a lot of activity has been conducted. People have been spending a lot of effort, and we have, in fact, members from all over the world. So it's really challenging, like for outreach or Office of Development. It's the same thing for any office of the IAU. But if a working group manages to deliver certain results with people from different backgrounds whom they have never seen or never met, then that means there is some kind of communication or some kind of way of bringing people together and working together is working. There's some recipe which is working, and which is how we are managing to deliver results and then managing to continue with our goals that we have set in for ourselves for the next 1 year or whatever. And so how does this happen? And this should apply for any kind of project, any research project, teaching project, whatever. So if we don't manage to kind of give platform to people, because everyone has their own specific expertise based upon the environment in which they were trained. And if we don't manage to give them the platform so that they can utilize this opportunity and do their best, then that's where the real problem happens. And that's where you start to feel like you are outlined, or you start to feel yourself, I'm an outsider and I don't have the opportunity. So it goes both ways. It's also the individual who feels that who is not comfortable to communicate, and at the same time also the team. Are they managing to create an environment in which people feel comfortable enough to speak and to contribute in the best way they can? So yeah.
Thank you all for your contributions, Bamta. Thank you so much. We've spent a while on the discussions. I think maybe it's time we can go back to the presentation and continue with the other slides. Thank you all for your inputs. I think you all have the link, so you can look at the other scenarios later and give your inputs. We'll be happy to hear what you have to say about the scenarios. Okay, so I'll move on to the next slide where we talk about, we are back, great. And we are going to talk about, about mitigation. But before we do talk about mitigation, we like to know, we want you to self-reflect after everything you have discussed, about everything you've heard from the initial icebreaker, what you think you are going through, what you think, how biased you think you are, where you are in your unconscious bias journey. I'll give it a couple of minutes and then we can continue with the slides. Let me know if you have any challenges accessing the forms. Has everyone been able to access the forms? Have anyone completed the forms or you're still on it? Yes.
But this form is not anonymous.
It's not?
I don't think so. I'm logged in with my email here, and you probably will receive the email of people who logged in. I don't know. I am assuming.
But no,
Uh-huh.
I in the form creation, I said we
Oh,
should
no,
not
no,
collect
it's here.
your
No, no, I
email.
see. It's not shared. I see. I see. Email not shared.
Let me know when you're done. So we can continue. Most of you have finished the form. That's great. Thank you all for, I know usually we don't, when we have these workshops, we don't give you so much work to do, but I think it's a good exercise to bring what we are discussing to bear and for you to internalize it and reflect on it. So thank you all for contributing. And we'll continue. We have very few slides left. How do we personally mitigate bias in ourselves? And it's a very important thing to do when trying to mitigate bias anywhere else, is to start with yourself. You need to actually build your own awareness, and the previous exercise is a way to help you build your own awareness. Know your own unconscious biases. What are you biased against? What do you normally gravitate to? How is that, going to affect you in how you make decisions and how you contribute to things and how you relate to people? And so you need to build awareness about yourself. And also after that, you need to self-reflect. After practice self-reflection, like every encounter that you have, I'm not sure we're all going to do it every encounter, but when you have a very significant encounter, it's great for you to sit down and after to reflect on the decisions you made, what you said, how things panned out. Did you make sure that you were not biased in how you contributed, in how you responded, in how you gave your inputs, and that will help you to build your awareness. Self-reflection is a way to build your awareness, and your awareness is a way to build self-reflection. And in that, it helps you to kind of slow down your thinking, because as we said, unconscious bias is a shortcut that the brain does to help us make efficient and effective decisions. But if we slow down our thinking, we realize that some of the biases go away, and our brain has a time to consider all aspects, all avenues before we make a significant decision or contribute significantly to whatever situation we are in. And to just diversify decision making and seek other people's opinions, think towards a different line. No, you always think about this, you think towards this line and change how you look at things. Put yourself in the person's shoe and kind of diversify how you make your decisions. Maybe you want to hold off making decisions until the next day, or write the decision down and come back later and think about it. It's always to diversify how you make your decisions. And you lead by example, especially if you're in a position of power, showing people how you self-reflect, showing people how you build awareness in yourself, and the steps you take to make sure that unconscious bias is not affecting your work negatively. And also invite feedback, just like the previous icebreaker that we had. I asked whether somebody gave you feedback or somebody called you out on your biases. Ask for feedback. Constructive feedback is always good. Sometimes feedback is given in an abrupt, very abrasive way, and sometimes we have to take that abrasive way, but it's good to ask for feedback in a way that is non-judgmental and helps you to constructively think about what you are doing. And also we need to embrace diverse perspectives, seek other people's opinions, seek other ways of doing things, other ways of mitigating things, other ways of assessing people. And this some of the steps we can take to personally make sure that we are mitigating our unconscious bias. Now, these steps are equally suitable for institutional plans or institutional strategies to mitigate biases in institutions. And recognizing bias is actually the first step, as I said, building awareness. And for institutions, not just building awareness and recognizing unconscious bias, but also implementing structured processes that we take when we are making these recruitments or merit-based decisions. We can use blind reviews, standard evaluations, and written, or many ways that where we can remove the influence of unconscious bias on the decision making. And speaking up and addressing biases in a professional setting can also create inclusive environments. Workshops like this, or people actually calling out people or having trainings in the institutions. It's a great way for institutions to also mitigate unconscious bias. And so now we are back to our Mentimeter. We need to know what we know now, find out what we know now. So we are going back to our first our screens. Let me present. Why is everything? Okay, I think I need to refresh. And great. So now we go to our next slide. Is how well do you now understand unconscious bias? So it's a rating a meter. So from low to high, you can, I think, a rate from 1 to 5. So you rate all these questions. How well do you now understand unconscious bias, and to what extent do you feel more aware of your own unconscious bias after this workshop? And how likely are you to recommend, this kind of workshop or training to your colleague, to your institution? having your feedback here will be great. Great. I'm happy people are more aware of their unconscious bias. I think we need more self-reflection and to build awareness. Thank you all. So the next question is, what type of biases are you now more aware of in yourself? As I told, this anonymous, so I don't know who wrote it, but what biases do you think inherently are in yourself that you can name? You can name some that you don't even know the names. If you think you can give a name to it, that would be great. What type of biases have you found out, after this whole discussion that we've had? What biases do you think you have and you're now aware of? And I think I can put down more than two. Yeah, you can put down as many as 3. So feel free and put in as many as you can. Great, thank you. And then we have this is also a word cloud. So what strategies from the workshop will you apply to mitigate your own biases? We've talked about some 5 to 7 strategies that can help you mitigate biases. Which one are you starting with, or which one do you think is most prominent or work best for you now as after this meeting? I think I can put down about 2 or 3. Then we talked about building awareness, self-reflection, getting feedback, having diverse perspectives, blind evaluations is one, awareness is one. It can be some of that we're not being written down. Some you think would be great for you to have in your arsenal as you try to mitigate biases. Great. Thank you all. Great. Yes, you need to rehearse on the color exercises. That's a very good exercise to have. I think I was wrong like 2 or 3 times before I finally got it to my head that I'm saying the colors, not the words. Thank you all for your inputs. And do you feel confident identifying your biases in a real world situation? Like, when something is happening like off the like really quickly and you need to make a decision, do you think you can identify, oh, I think I'm being biased here? Great. Thank you all for your inputs. It's been great. I'll go back here, and I think this session has been more of a discussion than a lecture teaching thing. So if you have any more questions that you want to ask, or any feedback, or any more tips between ourselves, what you think we can all share among ourselves, that will be helpful. The floor is open and we can continue that discussion. And the time is 7 o'clock here. I think we spent an hour and a half already. So the floor is open for questions and feedback.
Yeah, right. So I'll start with the first question, which may be useful for many people. Given that example where you have this young female student who is working with one of the faculty members, and her work is suppressed, and the credit of her work is going to the senior member. Or the second question, where you have this young male who is a bit hesitant to express himself because he thinks he is outsided, because his suggestions are not being heard, and the senior member, when he says, it's heard. So the question is, what should these young people do so that they can still be heard, given the fact that they may have risks on their careers?
That's a huge question. Thank you. Does anyone want to contribute to the question before maybe I jump in?
Yes. If I can say something, I am
Yes.
in Norway, and I am actually Brazilian. And here in Norway, one thing that we don't see much in Brazil and South American countries is the anonymous feedback. So, and this is, I think, is a very positive thing in the Norwegian society. You can give anonymous feedback, and you can even, most Norwegians are putting anonymous posts on Facebook to avoid getting direct hatred comments or having their lives exposed. But at the same time, you speak out, you say what you want to say, and but in an anonymous way. Of course, in a small community like astronomy community, it's very difficult. And if you are in a small department where there are only like 5 researchers and 5 PhD students or whatever, then an anonymous comment might be very difficult. But another thing that could maybe help would be to, like, of course, if you have confidence that this would help, you go to the leader. Also, is something I learned in Norway. In Brazil, we would take things directly to each other, looking face to face, and get exposed, which is maybe not so smart. And in Norway, you don't go to that person that is doing something wrong with you. You go to their leader and you speak to the leader, or you speak to someone from the HR, and then this person in the HR will take up the issue in another level. So then you put yourself in another position, and you avoid direct confrontation. That maybe this would help the person to not be in such a weak position. But of course, this still, when you are a PhD, you are very exposed. And even in Norway, like, I will give a clear example. I experienced sexual harassment in a meeting. Yeah, we went for drinking a beer. And I am a full-time employee. I'm not a postdoc or PhD student. And I said this to the leaders, and a case was opened. And then when this happened, I heard that there were several female PhD students that had been experienced the same sexual harassment by the same person, a senior researcher, and they never said a thing because they are in a weaker position. So it's still difficult, even with some tools that could like protect you. It's still difficult to speak. So it's, yes.
Thank you so much for sharing. Kelly, do you want to say something? Thank you so much for sharing.
I have so many thoughts. What you just shared, Thais, was made me think, there's a lot that we can do to support each other, but ultimately there need to be structures in place that protect everybody, particularly the most vulnerable. So, the fact that those PhD students didn't feel comfortable enough speaking up implies that there's something wrong with the framework around which you provide that feedback or contact HR, do any of that. The ways that I've gone about this in my own life and research world has been to find, I guess, allies of similar power structure, power level, I guess, and try to find people who will advocate for me in maybe other research settings, other social settings, to make sure that my voice is amplified when credit is not being directed in the correct way. I think that can be really empowering too, because you're getting a lot of good feedback from the people around you then, and that helps, makes you feel more secure, stronger in what you're doing. But yeah, I think the biggest thing though, and the most challenging thing is how do we change the structure of academia so that this isn't a problem anymore?
And how do we make the people feel confident about being able to step up and question that kind of the situation? Most of the time, people don't feel confident enough to articulate that situation to someone who will understand them and take it up. Claudia, you wanted to say something, please.
Thanks, Naomi. Yeah, I think it was mentioned right by Thais and Kelly. The need to have a structure, right, to channel. I mean, to give voice to those who don't have voice. So, ombuds, HR, allies, right? But at the end of the day, structure is, of course, is an important component, but also culture, right? I mean, it's I think is the utmost thing, right? I mean, you can have any policy that you have in place, but if the leadership, right, doesn't care about it, I mean, doesn't fly, right? So so Kelly, I mean, to address what you're saying, right? I mean, how those things change, I think they are changing again because we need to change. We are forced to change, right? We have a very different generation coming into power now into those places, and we are not able to work together anymore. Right? I mean, so this is being forced upon those organizations, right? So we need to learn how to deal with diversity as a matter of survival, not because it is nice, right? So that's why things are getting more and more, I mean, important, right? I mean, despite the setback in the US, right, is another issue, right? But we need this, right? So uh, I I think it was the one professor that came to give a talk on she was head of diversity inclusion or something at the Tech University of Munich, and she said, "Well, culture is it's policy for breakfast, right?" So that stick to me because I mean, you really need to change to have leaders that are willing to 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 make the step of enforcing those things. Otherwise, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't fly, right? I mean, but at the micro level, right, at level 1-to-1, I think you're right. I mean, the advocates and allies. I think at with the right power level, I think it's the one. It's the good thing.
Thank you for
I think what you're saying is that there are two separate things. You have the immediate things that we can do here now, and then we have the structural change that needs to happen. In the case of the gender biases, what we need, we women, we need men on our side. That's what we need. In this workshop, we are more women than men. I think there were more women before. I'm very glad there is Ugo here, there is Claudia here, but still we are 1, 2, 3, 4 women. I know 5 maybe. Yeah, 5. I see. I didn't see everyone in my screen. But what we need is that to have 5 men and 2 women in those workshops. We need to change this because as long as it's just women speaking about women's things, we will not change anything. We will not change much. We need men that are like speaking out, like when they see something, some imbalance happening, some bias, something that is unfair against a woman that is happening. And other men are laughing or they are mocking and they are saying, oh, this is totally fine. That doesn't exist. They are just crazy. I need that other men are saying, hey, stop. This is really happening. And we need to change. We need men in our fight.
Right. So I would like to add over here quickly. So yes, structural change is important, but change at every level is important, right? And what can one do at the bottom level is when you organize any meeting or any session, you make sure that you respect the diversity, and you respect the gender balance. If you don't do that as an organizer, that itself shows that there is something wrong about, because we are doing a lot of talking, but we are not doing anything in action and practice. And that's one way to start to implement these practices into action. So for example, in 2019, I started to organize, I have been organizing meetings and international conference a lot, but in 2019, I started to organize meetings where I was putting this topic of EDI sandwich between the invited talks. And I got all sorts of response. Oh, you are kind of diluting the whole session. Or, oh, why do you need this particular session between invited talks? Here, the invited talks on building an instrument or a big discovery is super important. And EDI is a different topic altogether. For me, no, it's not different topic altogether. It needs equal attention. And you need to sandwich it between invited talks. That's when the concerned members are going to be there to listen what's happening. And the concerned members are also the members who are into the decision-making committee, who are into the funding committees, who are dominating this field. And so that also include men, because when you have these women in astronomy session or diversity session, mostly it's filled by women attendees rather than men. So by this little practice that you can do in every meeting you organize, you kind of, let's say in a way you're forcing, but it's not really forcing. You are really bringing, or you're really creating the awareness for the whole community. And that includes really the men or the women who are in power and who are really doing great science, but who don't have enough time to address diversity and inclusivity at the workplace. So that's one thing which one has to start. And when I did that, afterwards, I started to see it's happening in other parts of the world. People have started it. So that really needs anyone's permission when you organize a meeting to include diversity and EDI and women and gender balance related talks in the plenary session, for example. So that's one thing. But that's at your level, and that's the power you have as an organizer to do. Now, when it comes to being more inclusive, of course, if you're leading a project, you should be meeting the project members once in a month, and you should try to listen to the members who are younger and who are coming from different ethnic origins, so that they have equal, how do you say, exposure in the team. And they have been given opportunity for 10 minutes, like anyone else in the team, to express what is going on, what work they did, and how they feel about it, so that they feel included. If they're overlooked, obviously they will lose their interest and their motivation to even speak out in the session about whatever contributions they do. And then one goes to more organization level, where every year people should be publishing every meeting, every year, or every hiring that is done. People have to publish the gender balance that is being achieved in the institution year-wise. How is it getting better? Is it getting diverse? Is it getting better? If not, then there is a problem. People are not changing the mindset. I know certain observatories where I have worked, where for 20 years there were no women hired. Hardly anybody of colored skin was there. And one person who was there, a female who was working there, had committed suicide. She was also colored skin, just because there was no integration. Her existence was really minimal and nobody knew if she was there or not there. So this is a serious issue. Why are we so happy to lose people with skills? We shouldn't be so comfortable with this kind of situation, but it happens. It happens to younger students who are also getting into suicidal mode. It happens to people with colored skin. And it's not really great for the whole humanity to lose people who have skills and who can share their skills and make the society more educated, more developed, and bring them in a better sense, rather than getting into a self-destructive mode. So be inclusive in what you do. Publish it in every meeting. When you maintain the web page, that we did that, and we made it. We were inclusive, and this is the result. You see, this is how it is. Get the feedback from the participants and publish that as well. You don't have to publish perhaps everything, but at least wherever people from a diverse background have mentioned what they felt great about the meeting, or even not, I mean, everybody, how they enjoyed the meeting. That's very important. Publish it so that you have a record. And at institution level, publish the hiring and the gender balance, how is it progressing year-wise, and ask your country institutions or government organizations to actually felicitate them, or to award them with their diversity efforts that they're doing. Or a big organization like NASA, like ESO, like ESA, they should actually award the projects who respected diversity and inclusion in their and gender balance in their project, because they have some power. So we are trying to do it with the IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group, and but it would be good if other organizations also start to do it. That's when everyone will get really into the mode of doing something for it. Otherwise, it's just going to be discussions without any action. Well, that's my point of view.
Thank you, Mamta. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions and for participating in my whirlwind of questions and Menti. I'm sure you had fun. I had fun. Thank you so much for joining this workshop. And if you want more resources, we have more resources here, and I'm sure we have multiple on research and institutions. And with that, thank you so much for your attention and for joining the Women in Astronomy IAU Working Group, and me and Kelly and the team in this workshop. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Naomi. But maybe Kelly, you want to add something, or Claudio, you want to say something, or Hugo, we didn't hear from you at all. If you want to say something.
Well, I'm just really grateful that we had this opportunity to share this with all of you. And this is really great for us because it's not quite the beginning, but close to the beginning of us building up this training program that we have at the OAO. And this will be a really important part of it. So thank you for giving us a lot of good things to work on, make it better in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Anybody else?
I mean, I think it's this is, as you said, it's a never-ending journey, right? So it's always good to refresh this kind of knowledge, but also what I noticed is that to be close to people who also advocates for the same cause, right? I mean, sometimes we feel lost, or even, I mean, the task is so huge, right? That so we feel discouraged, right? So the feeling that we are not alone, I think it's a great one. So I'm very happy to be here. It was a small group, but it was great, right? The discussion that we had. So thank you very much for putting this forward. Yeah. No, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Claudio. But as you are representing ESO, member, I was just wondering what's going on the ESO side for EDI activities. I know there is a document about ESO EDI activities, and that they are kind of working with the IAU, but I'm not very clear of what's going on there.
Yeah, so the DI is together with sustainability, right? So and sustainability. So when I say sustainability, it's all together. It's ESG, right? I mean, it's environmental and social as well. And those things, they are now being integrated into what ESO delivers to the community, right? It's not only on as an internal issue, but also in operations, in projects, right? In science activities. So we are slowly integrating those things, right? With targets, with KPIs, right? We are changing policies, right? In environmental aspects, but also in ADI aspects, right? So I think it came to a point, right? Those things take a lot of time. So it came to a point where it moved from initiatives here and there across organizations, bottom-up initiatives, to a more structured approach to those topics, right? So inserting diversity KPIs into the things that you buy, into the services that you buy, for instance, right? Or into project teams, right? This kind of thing, right? So that's the direction. I don't want to anticipate much because everything here is working in construction, right? It's ongoing work. But that is the direction that I was tasked to take, actually, right? So it's my main job today is this one, right? To integrate those aspects into our value chains. Yes.
Yeah. So it will be good to see how it goes ahead and how it progresses. And of course, IAU is happy to collaborate with EZO and with you if you have any suggestions or any projects. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. I think we had a very intense and a very interesting session, and we are going to put it on the Women in Astronomy YouTube channel so that everyone can refer to it and try to implement some self-reflection and some inclusivity and collaboration opportunities together. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Naomi and Kelly, for this presentation. It was really great. And please be in touch. And if you need any help, we are always there, and we are always open for any collaboration that you propose, because we are all working for the same cause, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for the invite. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a good
Bye.
day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.